now because we have Danny Hughes, former Down star and former Meath footballer Mickey Burke on the line now as well. Morning Danny, morning Mickey.
Morning.
Thanks for hopping on, lads. Danny, you might start with yourself. We were chatting to Colin McGinn a little bit earlier, Ashleen's fella here, about the atmosphere in Down. I guess after the semi-final and when you put 8 goals past anyone, albeit a Laois team that just didn't perform in the day, the hype train is going to really take off.
Yeah, and I suppose from that game, I'm not sure if it was an accurate. How would you say it? Well, Laois, I think going into the game, Laois had beaten a couple of teams from Anna and stuff, and I felt they would obviously put up a better showing for themselves. But I don't think it was a true reflection of Laois. And obviously the game was over after 10 or 15 minutes, so it was very, very hard on Laois, very hard on Billy Shane himself, and obviously he felt after the game, obviously he's quit there as manager, so it gives you an indication probably how bad Laois were and how poorly they performed. And Down were absolutely brilliant on the day. They were very, very mobile and they took their goal chances, and that's the one thing with Conor Laverty's teams, and the one thing that has, that kept them in the league right up until the last day was the fact that they could get goals, and they're very, very strong, very mobile, and if they get a half a sniff at all, they'll go for the goal. They'll not take the point. So I suppose it'll be interesting to see how Meath set up. If they're as open as they were against Antrim, I can only see one winner, and that's, I suppose, and that's going to be Down.
It's funny, Danny, as well, because even though, and this might sound ridiculous to say, even though they scored 8-16 and a 22-point win, Conor Laverty seems like such a perfectionist that even conceding 2 goals and 12 points against Laois will have pissed him off a little bit.
It would, and that's just the way he is. And I suppose when you were looking at it, when you look at how far they were in front, he would have won to beat them by 30 or 40 points, because that's just, I suppose, when you're at that level, to concede that, they seed the 2-12 or whatever they did, it was really in the latter end of the match when you were rolling people off the bench and stuff, and it was obviously a good opportunity for subs to come on to Croke Park, get their first experience of it, which many of them were, and perform, and perhaps with those changes enforced or not, then you would have been disappointed maybe with 1 or 2 of the players that were introduced that didn't do their jobs,
Yeah, just on that point, Danny, I looked at Conor's reaction when Laois got their first goal and Down went up the pitch on the next attack and got a goal back, and his reaction on the sideline was probably the most reaction I've seen from him throughout the whole game. They'd scored 8 goals, but when they got that 8th goal, because they had cancelled out Laois's goal, he was fired up and he was screaming at the defence that they did well. I think that tells you probably a lot about Conor Laverty too.
Yeah, it does. Listen, with the experience of Kilcoo behind him, obviously there's a fair raft of the players on the panel as well from Kilcoo that won an All-Ireland club title. So there isn't a perfectionist element there, and you don't win an All-Ireland club title if there's not that kind of character and approach to the game where everything has to be perfect. And I suppose you're dealing at the very, very top level. These guys know what it takes to close out a game, to send a message out there, and certainly Down, I would hope that yes, they sent out a message, but they will know that against Meath, given that they played them in the league there, they kicked 16 or 17 wides. No, sorry, they didn't play them in the league. They played them in the group stages in Parnell Park. They will understand that this will be a very, very different game, and it's a very different occasion as well.
And Mickey, that a lot was made of that game, I suppose, in the build-up to this one. A 2-point win for Meath, 111-19 in Parnell Park. And a lot was made, as Danny said, about the wides, the 17 wides from Down. But I guess the point is, and a couple of the Down players mentioned this during the week, those weren't just wides from anywhere. They were as a result of the Meath defending, because they pushed them out into areas beyond the scoring zone. So clearly the Meath defending worked that day against Down, and it's going to have to be equally as good this weekend. Yeah,
I think everything that Danny said there is very accurate and very fair. I suppose as a county we were probably very slow to maybe adapt to defensive systems and shape like that, and there was a lot made of it when we played particularly Dublin in the league this year in Navan. We were the full back line were very isolated and maybe open, so a lot of work has been done on our defence. And I suppose the Down game in Parnell Park was the first day where you could really see that, where we tried to get a lot of numbers back behind the ball. Down still had a lot of wides, but I think that was due to maybe Paul Garrigan's influence there, and you know what I mean, his coaching methods, trying to get more bodies back. I think that's just the way the modern game is, and it's a work in progress for us as a county, really. The whole thing is a work in progress. It's a young side, but they're doing everyone proud in the Tailteann Cup so far.
Yeah, Mickey, it feels like it is a work in progress, and you look at it, the team, it's very young, and there's some players that are coming onto the scene that are really players to watch out for, like the likes of Conor Gray there in the middle. What a footballer he is, and he's going to have a big say in midfield at the weekend.
Yeah, I was really impressed, Aisling, with him actually in the semi-final. Just probably that old school Meath midfielder who was probably not doing a lot of eye-catching stuff. He kicked a fabulous point in the second half, but just a lot of tackles, getting back, doubling up, getting hits in, winning primary possession, and just shoveling it off very simply. So I'm very excited to him. He's a big mobile man. I've bumped into him a few times, and he's definitely one for the future, and he's really impressing at the moment, and we're going to need him at the weekend.
Yeah, and there's a lot of competition in the middle as well for places, you know, with the likes of Jack Flynn is in there as well, club mate of mine, the likes of Dahi coming on, you've Ronan Jones, so there is a lot of competition, and these are big lads, strong lads, probably a little bit different to what Down have as well. Down are maybe a bit smaller in that case, but I think Meath need to use their physicality. That's what they have.
To do, I definitely think Down looked extremely mobile in the Laois game, very, very slick. I think we have to pull numbers back behind the ball. I think we have to keep it tight, definitely in the early stages of the game. Jonesy there, another big man around the middle of the field. You probably want Donald Keoghan and Paul Ricarnan, two very experienced players, like kind of man on the backs, you know, helping the younger guys out. We had regional trials in the county at the start of the year, and I suppose that the net was cast wide and far to try and look at every footballer from junior and intermediate level, and you know, lads are on the bench there, like Michael Flood from St. Bridget's, probably not a club that have traditional Meath footballers playing. Harry O'Higgins is there. He's got the nod again for the weekend, seemingly from the team that's been released. So there is a lot of younger players, and like I'm saying, it's a completely new Meath side. But we do have lads to come in off the bench who are not getting a run at the moment, lads who would have been deemed the starters in the last few years, the like of Killian O'Sullivan and Donal Lennon and these guys. So yeah, we do have a good bench, and if it gets down to the latter stages, one thing we have is a bit of pace there on the bench to come on as well, and hopefully that might open things up for us.
Danny, what's the attitude to the Tailteann Cup, towards the Tailteann Cup being in Down this year? Because I guess you look at the likes of Westmeath winning last year, and it was clearly a platform for them this year in the All-Ireland Championship, albeit they didn't get out of that group, but put in a draw against Tyrone, pushed Armagh all the way, probably should have got a win or something out of that game at the very least. So I guess from a Down perspective, is this seen as a platform?
I would definitely see it as a platform. It's a stepping stone. That's, I suppose, as Mickey will tell you, there, not somewhere that as a player you would ideally want to be. You want to be in the main championship, especially with the structure around the home and away and neutral fixtures with the group stages. Obviously, you're playing more games the way the structure was as opposed to what we played in. But from a personal perspective, the Tailteann Cup, the secondary competition, was never ever something I was enthused about. Funny, we were at a breakfast last Friday morning. There was a breakfast for to gather fundraising and stuff for the team, and there were 700 people at Down supporters, businesses and whatnot. And Jarlath Burns was he was more or less saying the same, that the secondary competition wasn't something that he felt was a good idea at the time. But I suppose, given how it is taken off, given how Westmeath have progressed, particularly this year with it, then I would say it's something that is definitely growing on me and growing on the wider participants in it, being Meath and Down. But certainly when you go back to 1991 and a repeat of that actual game and the whole buzz around probably both counties, I was, what age was I? About 8 or 9 years of age at the time. So it was it definitely feels a bit different, but in saying that, as you say rightly, it's a stepping stone, and Meath showed the way. Westmeath showed the way how they can build on it and develop. But that's no guarantee. But it gives them a certain entry into the main competition next year, and that's a good thing for both sets of squads and both sets of players, because as we know, even look at Cavan this year. There's probably favourites to win the competition along with Meath, Down being there as well, and beaten in the quarterfinals. Absence of players and stuff. So, listen, it's a stepping stone. It's not ideal where we want to be, but Robbie in the semi-final with Monaghan and Dublin tomorrow. But it is what it is.
It does feel that it's taken people a bit of time to come around to it. I still don't think everybody has came around to it, is probably the feeling. Mickey, what do you think it's like in Meath? Are people backing it?
I think it was probably slow, Aisling, at the start. Even I actually met Barry Callahan for a coffee. He just was in front of me at the very start. It probably was a week maybe after the Offaly game, and spirits were probably low as a snake's belly as a county at that stage. And just asked him how was things, and he was in front of me in the queue, and he said, "Look, Mickey, the Offaly game was a low, and look, this is not where we really want to be, but it's where we are, and we're going to do our best in it." And I think the lads have shown that it's given us a bit of momentum. We need games. The boys need games and need exposure to play in championship games, and it's amazing what a bit of confidence and a bit of momentum can do. Like Danny rightly said there, look at Westmeath this year. I've got to bounce off it, but hopefully Meath supporters will come out on Saturday and cheer the lads on. It's bringing back memories of '91. Like Danny said, I was too young for that as well, really. But both very traditional counties, and both counties that love football, and I suppose it's very important for both counties to try and get a win.
Danny, the pace in this Down team is one thing that's been focused on a lot in the build-up, and rightly so. And this is the thing as well. The average age of the team, I don't know what it is, but a lot of the players seem to be 23, 24. The average age is probably as low as a snake's belly, as Mickey might say.
Why are you comparing Mickey?
Say that again, Danny.
Are you comparing Mickey to a snake?
Would never do that. I would never do that.
Chance.
I'm just going to use that phrase in my everyday life now. As low as a snake's belly. I've never heard it before. But that is something that we should focus on, Danny, isn't it? The youth in this team, and we mentioned earlier in the show, Conor Laverty, I guess, has brought a lot of these lads through from 20s, and there is that youth, and I guess relative inexperience of playing in Croke Park is one way to look at it, but also just the absolute confidence of youth.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's freedom with how when young guys come into the squad. I've seen it over the years, and then think back to me coming in at 20 years of age. There's a freedom, and you don't worry as much about what people think. You don't worry as much about your performances, and it's a freer performance in a large way. Especially people that's just onto the panel. They're really nothing to lose, and it's about making a name for yourself. And that's from a personal perspective. Now, Down, you have the crux of a large number of players that are on the panel have been there last year in bits and pieces, maybe the year before in bits and pieces on the paddy tally. So there is a bit of experience there in terms of they know what it's like to be at that top level, that elite level, what the environment's like, what is expected. And obviously you have the experience now of the Kilcoo players that have joined, have thrown their lot in with Down now. So, Kilcoo would have in the past, it would have been said that they would have viewed their setup as equally as professional as any county setup. So, with that in mind, there's certainly there's a quiet confidence, and there's a quiet bit of experience there that's been developed over the last number of years subtly. So the pace is a massive thing. For me, they're going to have to close down the spaces of Croke Park if they're going to make sure that Down get the goals. Down will play in very, very small pockets. They've nippy forwards and backs that will play between the lines. And when you're playing between the lines, it can be very hard to break down, particularly in Croke Park. So while Meath will have the physicality, they'll have the size there, It's whether they have the mobility to stay with the Down team, particularly the Down defence, who will end up popping up at the full forward line at times. Like Caelan Doherty may well start as centre half back, but he'll certainly not play there. I wouldn't think he will play full forward, half forward, midfield at times. He's not a huge guy, but he's a very, very mobile guy. So you'll have all those type of switches going on, and as well as Meath can make sure that there's no confusion there, because even against Antrim they were a wee bit leaky at times, and if Antrim had to get their last pass right, they could have had one or two more goals. So I think Meath are going to have to work very, very hard to close down the spaces to ensure that Down don't get a run, and those wee ticky-tacky passes that can create goal opportunities aren't prevalent throughout. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Meath set up. I'm certainly looking forward to that, because Colm O'Rourke would have been very much along the line of a traditional way, get the ball forward, kicking the ball forward. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of tries to negate the pace that Down play with.
Mickey, I did a preview night last night with Cian Ward and Tommy Dowd, and Tommy was just speaking about the bond with Meath and Down and what it was like for them when they were playing maybe through the 90s and the early 2000s. And I sort of felt it as well, like when I moved up to Down, that there was this bond. People would stop you and tell you about the teams and the battles through the years. I don't know if it's something that you felt with the teams in your years with Meath.
I spent a couple of games trying to run after this lad on the line before, and Marty Clark and a couple of them. That was about the only bond. Now I was trying to get a hand on them, but no, they're a county that I definitely would respect from afar and would have a lot of time for. Even though, like I said, I was a bit young for 91, I do have very vague memories of it and reading up about it and hearing the old stories and that. But to be a county that I would have huge respect for, and they have huge tradition like ourselves. So it's going to make, like I said, he's been very honest there, and he's been very truthful, and I think it's very accurate. I think if Colm is trying to play a very traditional game at the weekend, I think we could be in trouble. It'll just feed into Downs. Down will get plenty of bodies back, and if we're looking for long, accurate kick passes into the full forward line early doors, I just think that's going to fuel them with so much energy. And I really do hope we put plenty of men back behind the ball and stay in this game for as long as we can, because Down are looking very impressive. But one thing I will say is that we won't fear Down as a county. Meath will not fear Down, and it's vice versa as well. Down won't fear us. So it's very it's an interesting game, but it's going to be tough for us to get over the line. And I think that's just being honest.
I think Meath's forward line is going to obviously dictate a lot. I think they have a very, very strong full forward line. There are guys that are really, really good footballers, and if they can get the ball into the Down full back line and obviously the Meath full forwards, I think that if Down don't have men filtered back, those Meath guys can do damage, because it's just going on the Antrim game again. I think it was almost a wee bit easier for me at times, getting the ball in so quickly that they wasted a few chances. But if they waste those chances against Down, I think that could come back to bite them. So it's about efficiency and attack, I would say, with that Meath full forward line as much as anything else. If they don't take their chances or they give away the ball when Down swarm them, then again, that's something Meath might come back to haunt them.
Yeah, hopefully. Above all, I just hope it's a great advertisement for the Tailteann Cup. I'd love a really, really cracking game, high scoring, tight, and I feel like it's going to be that. Even when you see like a young forward like Liam Kerr in the Down team scoring a few goals the last day, I think he's only 23 maybe, and similarly on the Meath side, the likes of Jordan Morris, similar age as well. Like, so exciting to see these players in a final of this magnitude for them, because I know it's not the final that maybe Down and Meath fans would want to be in, but it's still silverware in Croke Park at the end of the day. How do you lads see it? Final predictions here. Might start with yourself, Danny.
I think Down will win based on I suppose a wee bit of nostalgia. Based on the fact that Aisling probably supporting me. So
yes, Danny, you have that right.
Right, okay. Connor in this instance, but no, I think he'll be smiling over the weekend. I think Down will win the game because they have a brilliant knack at the minute to getting goals, and I think goals are going to decide this contest. But listen, Meath are very, very strong. Definitely very, very strong around the middle. I think they're going to need their physicality there, but in order, obviously, I can't go against my own county. So I know McGill up with Meath, but hopefully I'll see him. Saturday in any regard.
Yeah. Look, I won't back against my own county either. I really hope the lads do it. Obviously, look, there's still a few good mates of mine in there, and I'd love to see Donald Keoghan and James McEnany, Pádraig Carn, and all them boys getting a bit of success for all their years. But like I said, it's going to be very, very tough on us if we. But I really hope that we get plenty of men back behind the ball at regular stages and try and hit Down on the counter. I think it's going to be Down are very pacey, very athletic, and look, if it gets down the home straight, like I'm saying, the Meath boys won't fear Down. We won't fear them at all. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a day for the green and gold.
Brilliant stuff, lads. Both going with your own county. You can't back against your own county, that's fair. And the same for Monaghan against Dublin tomorrow, rightly or wrongly. You can't back against them. But listen, lads, thanks a million for hopping on this morning, Danny and Mickey.
Thank you.
Thanks, lads.